Dan Ashworth is the technical director, the overlord now at Manchester United in terms of the sporting situation. And he's been speaking for the first time. He's written in the club's yearbook, but it's his first sort of public utterance since taking over as the head honcho at Manchester United in terms of the football department. There is a new chief executive as well. He said this yesterday. This remains one of the biggest football clubs in the world, but that is not our measure of success. The focus is getting on back to being amongst the best on the pitch, and it won't happen overnight, but together with our new chief executive Omar Barada and his new leadership team, we will not rest until we have achieved it. Reading that yesterday as a Manchester United fan, I nearly said the word that he used. Are you enthused by what Dan has had to say?
There does seem to be a freshness about United compared to this time a year ago. We all know the stories about the pre-season when Erik Ten Hag was a bit disciplinarian in terms of downtime, and that didn't go down particularly well with the players. I think it looked like they were overtrained going into the season. We were there at that first game against Wolves when they were all over the shop in midfield, quite frankly. It never really got any better until that FA Cup final, and actually I thought they produced a really good performance to beat Manchester City. So, listen, I believe in best in class. That's the phrase that Simon Jordan, if he was in this chair, would use. I think Dan Ashworth has proved himself when it comes to being an operator at boardroom level as the best in class. So too is Omar Barada. I think the jury's probably still out on Jason Wilcox. I think his rise has been pretty rapid when you think he was in charge of the academy at Manchester City.
Where did Dan Ashworth come from? Where was he
then
made?
To Southampton. And now suddenly he's calling the shots at United. But they finally got that structure that they've needed since David Gill left the football club. I'm sure Darragh would agree with that. And you can't get it right on the pitch without it being right in the boardroom. So I think it's a massive step in the right direction. It's going to take time, but I am encouraged and I am more positive going into this season than I was at the end of last.
You taking credit for Norfolk born and bred Dan Ashworth?
I'm just saying he passed through the halls of Peterborough. And obviously I have a relationship with Dan going when he was at Newcastle, and we took a loan and player off him. Yeah, great recruitment. I think great business for United. I think they are getting their act together off the field. I think that side, the football side of it, the hierarchy and the chain of command that's been put in place is definitely going to see better days. I think it's going to take a bit of time. I'm not sure on the manager, the style of play. Not for me.
Well, we need to see a defined style of play.
Yeah, you've had 2 years of it now. If you can't tell me what your manager's style of play is after 2 years, Alex, then I'm kind of scratching my head.
We saw a bit of it in the first season, and there were excuses for last season.
So let's look at it this way. You won the FA Cup final. Brilliant. You'd say good counter-attacking football, very clever the way they did it. Is that what you want to see from the biggest club in the world?
No.
Every week?
No.
Right. Is that the way Pep Guardiola would play?
No.
Roles reversed. If he was Man United manager playing Man City with the same squads, would Guardiola give up his principles and play counter-attacking football?
I think you've got to play to your tools. If you try and out-football Manchester
when
City,
you've spent over, what, 1.3 billion over the last 10 years or 7 years?
We talked about that. They've spent money badly, and that backs up what I've said about the boardroom.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's horses for courses. It's not if I were a fan, I'm a Liverpool fan, as everyone knows, and I keep boring people, reminding them, if the new guy's style of play is similar to Ten Hag's, I'll be like, oof. Yes, I'm going to give him time, but I watch football to enjoy it. I don't watch it to watch Wolves dominate me in possession or Brentford to have twice or 3 times the amount of shots my team do. So that's what I'm in football for.
I agree.
And interestingly, Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth have openly talked about this, and they've been charged with defining a style of play and making sure that it happens. They decided that Erik Ten Hag is the strongest candidate to do that at this moment in time. But
did they? Who else was available this summer?
Well, that's, as I said, the strongest candidate at this moment in time available to do it. And he has now got to ensure that they start with a style of play that is recognisable, which the club would like to see going forward.
Yeah, I think he's earned the right with that FA Cup final win, and with his body of work over the 2 seasons. He's the first manager in United's history to win trophies in both of his first seasons in charge. He's had an awful lot to deal with in terms of injuries. You could say some of that was self-inflicted last season because of what I mentioned about how hard they worked in pre-season. He's conducted himself, I think, brilliantly in face of very strong criticism. I mentioned it before. He got far more criticism than Mauricio Pochettino did last season, and for much of the season there wasn't too much difference between United and Chelsea in terms of results and league position.
Both teams play?
Yeah, but
I'll give you're a Chelsea fan. Did you not like what Poch, the style at the end of the season?
It's a slightly defined style of play watching Pochettino's Chelsea. And by the way, they finished 6th last season, which with the amount of changes and upheaval they had, that's quite some achievement.
He had the Mason Greenwood situation, which was dealt with terribly at boardroom level. There was a stage where he was being told that he'd have to reintegrate him into training. It was only the backlash from supporters and club staff that caused a U-turn. That's not an easy situation for a manager. He had the Jadon Sancho situation, which again, you might say is a little bit self-inflicted. Maybe he was heavy-handed in that, but it was a very difficult dressing room. That's before you even get onto Marcus Rashford and how he tried to manage him. So I think a clean slate. Let's see what he can do.
The case for the defence.
Should we reckon by October he'll be like sat here going, he's the worst manager ever. Don't love the style of football.
If you were tuned in a year ago, you would have heard him refer to Erik ten Hag as LBG, the little ball genius.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was he like that then?
And that was because we were enjoying the style of play that night against Barcelona when I was sat in the director's
when
box
I had to
and we had a
convince
beer with him afterwards.
when I had to convince you to come because you weren't going to pay for a ticket, and I said to you, "This is going to be a great game. You're going to beat Barcelona," and you said, "No, I'm not going to come. I'm not going to come." And then someone gave you a freebie, and you decided to turn up.
Oh, there he goes again. There he goes.
Is it true or not?
Not quite the way you've spun it.
At least my jibes at you are true. The one that you came out with on breakfast was made up.
What, Botox boy?
Yeah.
But anyway,
made up.
I think it'll be a better season. If it isn't, by the way, he probably will be gone by October. I think he has to hit the ground running.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. You don't think they'd play it again where they see out the year. You know, if United are kind of 6th, 7th, the football's still a little bit boring. You got teams that are mid-table teams dominating you in possession and shots. At that stage, then do you go, right, it's year 3, you've been told, you've been warned in the summer, we gave you a new deal, bye-bye.
Where do United finish next season, do you reckon?
Based on their signings so far, based on the strength of competition, anywhere from 4th to 7th.
What about you?
I've got a feeling they'll get back in the top 4.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.